Before we start, I just want to give a quick thank you to all of the crewmates who are supporting the channel on the SocraTetris Patreon page. If you are enjoying the channel, consider pitching in $3 a month in order to help me make videos and to have your name credited here at the start. With that said, let's begin. Elden Ring is not a Souls-like, at least not in the way that we as fans of From Software have been discussing their third-person action games over the past decade or so. Outside of discussions surrounding the lore, by focusing on difficulty, on combat mechanics, on what does and does not break that core experience of Demon's Souls and Dark Souls 1 that's centered on overcoming difficult and punishing level designs and bosses, we inadvertently limit our discussions to that part of the game that gives us the greatest rush of feeling, the greatest sense of accomplishment and pride. The rhythm and the flow of a boss designed to push you to the limit, to that last-minute clutch victory with 0 healing items left and a well-timed dodge attack that explodes the boss into a cloud of shining smoke. I get it. I do. That is why I love Souls-likes too. It is the main reason I love Souls-likes, and I don't need to have a gatekeeping attitude when I say that I'm happy for other people who have their fun and achieve that feeling in different ways to me. But if I don't experience that feeling, then I do not have as much fun with this kind of game. Difficulty matters to my experience as a Souls veteran, and seeing people spoiling Elden Ring's DLC with day one full game long plays and boss fight compilations made me disappointed. It made me think that even the DLC would be these boom or bust fights that ended in 30 seconds, depending on whether I get killed for choosing the wrong defense option for a specific move, or me and 2 co-op partners explode the boss with broken spell and weapon art combinations. When I played Bloodborne, I never summoned help for bosses. Same with Dark Souls 3 and Demon's Souls. Going full-on sword and board while choosing the best weapon for each situation, I memorized and executed every parry in Sekiro until I got to that platinum trophy. But with Elden Ring, I lost my patience. The base game was so massive and the community discussion was outpacing me by a country mile. I had friends on their New Game Plus runs or second characters when I had just barely reached Altus Plateau. I was leveling my character poorly too, doing as I had done in Dark Souls by prioritizing my damage, relying on the heater shield to keep me safe, with basically no investment in vigor. I wasn't paying attention to how Elden Ring's challenges differ because the systems available to me were so familiar. By the time I beat the fire giant, I was rushing through the game. I was still trying to see everything, but I sprinted recklessly through most challenges. I didn't appreciate the level design or engage with it. I used the cheesiest strategies I could find. I was angry and called every fight after Morgott some kind of unfair bullshit. And I didn't have fun. In the 2 years between completing the base game and waiting for the DLC, I played a lot of other games. I played a lot of other Souls-likes. I've played Mortal Shell, I've played Ashen, I've played Steel Rising, I've played Lies of P, I played The Surge, I played Lords of the Fallen, I've played through Nioh. I really do like these kinds of games, and I even like them when they aren't made by From Software for all of the different, unique little twists and gimmicks that other developers come up with. Yet I kept coming back to Elden Ring to farm some levels when I had time to kill. I experimented with different builds. I did some PvP, some invasions, some cooperation. I ran through my New Game Plus route quickly to gather up some things that I missed. Then I had a long hiatus. I wasn't enjoying my time with the game anymore. When Shadow of the Erdtree was announced, I figured it was time to give the game another shot. I was finally ready to slow down, to really engage with the systems of its combat. None of my friends were even interested in talking about Elden Ring anymore, so I was free to take it at my own pace. Yet my familiarity with the game, by that point, was such that once my stats and my skill issue were fixed, bosses were still either steamrolled or I got train-wrecked. I wasn't getting that feeling, that rush. I beat Lies of P the very same night I started playing Shadow of the Erdtree. I had thoughts. The responsiveness of Lies of P's controls and experiences of P's level designs were unmatched by anything From Software had made in my experience before that. Round 8 Studio took a study of everything From Software invented over its lifetime of Souls action games and applied it aggressively and innovatively. Both aggressive and subversive level design. Did you like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, or Sekiro the most? Well, take your pick between block, dodge, sprints, and parries for defense, near infinite customization for weapons and consumables, unique enemy encounters outside of bosses littered every stage, such that for me, it has become the new standard. Nearly all of Lies of P's bosses delivered on that excitement of overcoming a harrowing challenge by the skin of my teeth. If you remove the concept of something like an open world from the equation, my honest opinion right now is that Lies of P is the best Souls game. Having returned to Elden Ring immediately after beating Lies of P, even with Elden Ring being the fastest paced game outside Sekiro, from Software, there is a sense of delay. There is an expending of resources that makes the game feel less dynamic, by which I mean you expend everything you have to win as fast as possible, or lose quite immediately. With Lies of P, most interactions would leave me with no healing and barely any health, panting and elated, but there was a back and forth, there was a pace to how I had to use my resources as I made mistakes. So it was at that moment that I decided that I needed to change my approach to how I play Elden Ring's DLC in order to find that dynamic engagement again. But it should be noted that with P, I didn't have to try to find it. It found me. The game is much more straightforward in that way. So, on to Elden Ring. Part 1. Action Plan. My Elden Ring character is leveled to over the soft cap of every player's stat, because I wanted to be able to use everything the DLC throws at me. It's a new game plus 3 at this point. I'm using the healing build that I had set up, Great Stars, Rykard's Great Rune, Rykard's Talisman, and Serpent God's Curved Sword, no shield, because I relied on shield and the rapier spear combination for most of my first playthrough too much. I used a big slow weapon because I'm more accustomed to playing with fast dex weapons, and I went around the main map purposefully engaging with the various encounters rather than running past them so that I could get my sea legs back for Elden Ring's combat. I stepped up to the DLC altar and was greeted by Leda. I entered the realm of shadow, and the adventure began. Part 1 of the plan was to only keep this build until I had a full set of armor and a new weapon. I got my ass handed to me by a horny goat dancer, off to a great start, grabbed the map, looked over the map to see where I wanted to explore first, and headed down to the Church of Consolation. Right now, most enemies are dying in 1 to 3 hits, nothing that impressive. I found the Black Steel Great Hammer, the perfect transition as it was the same weapon type as the Great Stars. I found the Western Nameless Mausoleum, and this was my first brick wall. Here I could feel the game telling me to go explore some and come back to fight this later. I needed more Skadu Tree blessings to not get two-shot by this guy. I could form a winning strategy. I saw how his attack patterns were set to dodge backward after receiving a hit, how he switched from the crossbow to the greatsword, doing combos that looked like a combination of Moonlight Greatsword and Stormbringer, and putting me on edge. I could get him down to about an eighth of health left, but with no time to heal once I got put on my back foot, I would invariably die. So I said fuck the plan. I got impatient. I decided to do what I said I wasn't going to do, and summoned other players to fight him. And you know what happened? Even with 3 of us, the fight was still extremely close. There were multiple moments where if I had made one wrong move, I would die and the run would end. Each of us had different plans for causing him to stagger, but we each still took hits. We each had to run in and out because each of us had a plan but was still underprepared. We won, but even with the 3 of us, it was a narrow victory. This planted the seed of something in me, but it wouldn't sprout just yet. I threw on the Armor of Solitude. I put all of my base game items into storage, other than a seal and staff for incantations and spells. I continued to explore. I threw myself at the giant furnace to figure out how to defeat those things. I got real good at jumping those feet stomps, and never once managed to dodge the grab attack. I found the Bellurat jail, fought my way through some disgusting horrors, the implications of which I never want to think about again, died right before the boss, got impatient again, ran recklessly back to the boss, and used my mimic tier to fight the demi-human swordsman. This turned out to be overkill. I was expecting another fight like at the mausoleum, but I only got to see a few of this badass demi-human's moves before he was defeated. So never again. I stored all of my spirit ashes, including the mimic tier, and leveled up demi-human swordsman Vosh to +10. He and I would be ride or die until I get a new DLC spirit ash that I wanted to try. I finished exploring everywhere south of the Elik Great Bridge, so now it was time to brave Belurat Tower and face the Dancing Lion. The Lion Dance boss was going to be intense. I knew it would be. And just before I opened the door to the arena, I noticed the summon sign for Redmane Freya to join me in battle. Admittedly, I'm not even thinking about how I denied myself the joy of that last cave boss. What if I was denying myself a Black Iron Tarkus moment here in Elden Ring's DLC? I entered the arena and summoned Vosh. The three of us charge forth. The armored costume of the Lion's Dance makes it so that even when I run in from the side and from behind, I cannot get any good hits in unless I'm chasing it head on, or from very specific angles. When it brings the fight to the corner, the lion fight I was expecting becomes a dragon, as it spins through the air, changing the weather from windstorms to thunder to blizzards. It dawns on me that the Land of Shadow's chaotically shifting weather, compared to the lands between, may be because of this enemy. Too afraid to meet these large AoE attacks in the corner, I take my distance and start throwing incantations. Vosh falls in battle. The Lion Dance switches its attention to me. It spins up a tornado. Freya staggers the boss and lands a riposte. I run up to assist. It summons a blizzard. I stagger the boss. Freya throws a bomb while I land a riposte. With Freya jumping over me to keep the offensive, the Lion Dance summons a thunderstorm. I take 2 large hits and luckily make it out with only a sliver of health. I heal and I run in for another charged heavy attack, only to catch the rear dancer's tail. It survives. But in that moment, the beast's attention is on me. Freya runs up and slices through its blind spot, and we win. I am screaming with elation, and my wife is in the other room wondering what's wrong with me. I used everything in my arsenal, my summons, my Ash of War, my spells, my mana flask, and 8 of my 12 healing flasks. I may not have taken this boss on solo, but it was exhilarating. It was that feeling. I found it, and that was with 2 NPC summons assisting me. I moved on to receive Leda's letter telling me to head east. I head east to Castle Ensis. Facing the Carrion Night Troll at the entrance, I once again lost patience at the bad matchup between my Great Hammer and this enemy. I switched to the Nagakiba and take care of him the old-fashioned way. I push forward to the first cross, barely defeating the heavily armored knight, wielding my first DLC weapon against me, but I win. I take a break. When I come back, I recommit myself to the plan, back to the Great Hammer. As I explored the castle, however, I find a series of new items. The Milady, the first light greatsword. I like it. The gentle, feminine movements of this weapon reminded me of the Dancer of the Boreal Valley, or Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. I wasn't feeling it immediately, so I put it away. Then I find Rellana's cameo. I have no idea what a stance is, or if this talisman even does anything. Then I find the Wing Stance Ash of War, and it all clicks. I combine these with the Shard of Alexander and find a new DLC build that has me rocking 2400 to 3000 damage per hit with the split damage of a Frost Infusion. I'm literally in love. I explored the rest of the castle and make it to the boss arena. Again, another summon sign. Leda is there to take on this boss with me. I open the door, and it's Rellana, the Twin Moon Knight. The Rellana, fusion of the Dancer and Maria with greater moon magic than Rennala. Knowing nothing about her, I had completely changed my build to be a poor facsimile of her. A mirror match ensues where Leda, Vosh, and I chase her down dozens of times. I may have beaten the Lion Dance on my first try, but this, with a party of 3, takes dozens of attempts. I try so many things, I switch out my spells, but all prove to be equally subpar. No, the only thing that works well enough is the Wing Stance. Careful timing and well-placed defense. The final battle with Rellana was a comedy of errors. The final battle with Rellana was a comedy of errors and ballad of skill rolled into one, frequently being sliced and diced by normal attacks, but deftly avoiding the screen-blinding magics that killed me on every other run. Riposte after riposte, and 3 or 4 were not even enough to stop her. I had learned from the failure of my death sorceries that aggression would be the only way to face her. I needed to stay uncomfortably close if the wing stance was to work. Early on in the fight, my over-reliance on the wing stance landed me with what must have been only 1 HP left because I was certain I had died. But I didn't. Vosh was the first to fall this time, though he had survived in many other attempts. Leda was keeping her attention, allowing me the time I needed to use the wing stance with the boost from Rellana's cameo. Right as I think we have a chance, she uses the Twin Moon spell that is her namesake. And I remember the Furnace Giant. I realize I can jump the attack. Once, twice, thrice I jump over her waves of magic. Leda is toppled to the ground, nearly dead. I run in, not waiting for the wing stance as I had come to depend on, but with a regular sprinting flurry of light attacks. I don't think I can save Leda in time, but in that moment, frostbite. One more hit, and Rellana dies. Leda is safe. I salute the video game NPC as though she were a real comrade in arms. She stands with her back to me, like an anime rival too focused on the next step of her journey. It is upon sitting at this site of grace that, at long last, the kind of game Elden Ring wants to be made itself clear to me. So part 2. A better plan. During all this time, something happened to me while scrolling YouTube. A channel I don't even watch, but had subscribed to for some Elden Ring video essay long ago, posted a spoiler in a community post. They posted the image of the DLC's map. I quickly scrolled away so as to not absorb any of it, yet I was more upset about seeing that spoiler than any of these massive Day 1 Let's Plays encouraging me to rush the game again so as to stay topical with the community. That's what made me stop to think that maybe, for Elden Ring, I care about the other aspects of the game more. Thinking of Souls-like as a kind of action game first and foremost had caused me to completely forget that Souls-likes are RPGs. Jolly cooperation has always been a staple of the Souls game's engagement, most often in more subtle, less centralized ways, but always present. These first 2 boss fights in the Land of Shadows made me realize that Elden Ring is the jolly cooperation game. Sekiro centered the rhythmic passivity of parrying in the Souls-like formula. Bloodborne centered the aggression of dodging forward and turning offense into defense. Dark Souls 3 centered magic and PvP, turning the Dark Souls patterns damn near into a platform brawling fighting game. Dark Souls 1 centered careful observation and traversal while exploring a vast and hostile world. Demon's Souls centered preparation, observing enemy weaknesses and choosing the options best suited to address the enemy's weaknesses. All of From Software's games share all of these various components and more, but each also devotes significantly more of its attention to a specific aspect of what makes these games enjoyable, moving from one to the next whenever the team has new ideas to make that aspect unique. Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and Sekiro all developed along a continuum of facilitating the rhythmic combat toward a greater and greater play-perfect mentality. Sure, you can still achieve that in Elden Ring, but it is less intuitive than the other games, less straightforward. What is straightforward about Elden Ring, to me personally, is the prevalence and availability of companions. In CRPGs, the role-playing games that try the most to imitate the experience of playing a tabletop game of Dungeons & Dragons alongside a party of friends, the idea of having companions is absolutely fundamental, and the experience is about experimentation, trying to kill a dragon, a lich, or a Strahd von Zarovich for the 500th time, but doing it differently each and every time you're there with a new party. CRPGs like Baldur's Gate and Pillars of Eternity start the player with a party of NPCs to control alongside their created characters. If you wanted to deliver an experience like that, but in the format of the third-person action games that Souls games have already established, what would you do? Maybe spent the entire opening cinematic of the game more focused on the NPCs rather than the bosses as you had done in previous games? Maybe give players companions that will always be available to them. That's the Spirit Ashes. Maybe create multiple side quests where the point is to be saved by or protect an NPC, like each stage of the Yura side quests. Maybe create multiple side quests where you need to bring a companion to a destined location, such as with the Spirit Jellyfish to the Stargazer Ruins, Latenna to the Big Lady at the Apostate Derelict, Melina to the base of the Erd Tree, and then to the Kiln of the Fire Giant, or Hieta to the Three Fingers. Maybe have the side quests of an enemy faction treat you like a brother-in-arms, only for a last-minute betrayal. That's the Volcano Manor. Or perhaps you would rather fully integrate that experience of traveling with a party of adventurers into the most exciting moments of the game, by making those party members available to summon before most major bosses. And I'm not talking summoning pools. Summoning Edgar before the Leonin Misbegotten leading the rebellion at Castle Morn, summoning Nephili Lu to fight Godric, summoning a whole party of adventurers during the Radon Festival, summoning Melina to face off against Morgoth, summoning Alexander to bring the fire giant to his knees, summoning both Nephili Lu and Shabriri to fight Horalu. Most of the main bosses in the story of Elden Ring involve encouraging the players to, in some way, summon help and take on the challenge as a party. You know, I praised Lies of P as a better action-oriented Souls-like than anything From Software has made. I do mean that honestly, that game is amazing. Yet I never felt bad about when I chose to summon the helper NPC in that game either, because the game felt designed around that option existing. Now the DLC of Elden Ring tells us to literally join a From Software style Band of the Hawk to face the lands of shadow and find kindly Miquella to lead us to salvation. We meet them at nearly every grace before the new legacy dungeons. We mutually benefit each other with items and information. They are staged by each boss door asking to fight alongside you, the story and the combat of the DLC being seamlessly interwoven. And I trust From Software to design these bosses to deliver that experience. Like Griffith and Casca teaching Guts to trust his companions again during the Golden Age arc, Miyazaki is asking the players to, for now, set aside the image of a lone hero pushing through to the task's end. He's not saying you can't, nor that you shouldn't, nor questioning why you would want to. Elden Ring still facilitates the experience of the other games if that is what you want to do to find the fun. But twice in a row I have seen the alternative. The same harrowed victory was achieved by fighting alongside a party of adventurers rather than by myself. I'm all but certain that this exact experience will continue with each mainline boss of the DLC, and I'm excited for it. The stories I have told you of just 2 fights have once again gilded my memory of Elden Ring, which had slowly been tarnished over 2 years of waiting, once again making Elden Ring an important game to me. Thank you for your time, and stay true.